Okay, well, I'm joined today by Brian Allen. So thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me today, Brian. Just wanted to catch up with you as here at Bishop Fleming, we're sponsoring the Tech Southwest Awards, and you guys at Rovco are up for 3 awards as a company, and you yourself are personally up for 1 more. So I guess firstly, sort of big congratulations to you guys on the nominations there. Before we sort of get into the awards and things, I thought it would just be great if you could just give us a little bit of a background on Rovco, kind of your dates, both you personally and as a business, and kind of where Rovco sits now as a company.
Okay. Well, hi Matt. Thank you for taking the time. It's really appreciated. Okay, little bit of background on Rovco. I spent my career mostly building wind farms and doing in an industry which hasn't really adopted like the latest technologies as quickly as some others. And so I've always wanted to kind of bring technology into solving the problems that I saw through industry. And I took the opportunity to do so about 4 or 5 years ago. So I started up Rovco, just myself, and then Joe Tidball, my first employee, and we came from the NatWest eSpark group. And were in there for about 1.5 years before we managed to bring in investment and grow the company. But our whole ethos has been about how we bring technology in to help the renewable wind industry move forward, using autonomy and 3D vision and AI and data platforms and things, as well as using our tech to try and help clean up a classically dirty industry in terms of the oil and gas industry, in terms of trying to reduce the CO2 output that people used to do their O&M there. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey. It's been quite some time, but about 97% of our revenues come from renewables, 3% from oil and gas, but it's been super tough. And we're now a 50-person company, driving forward, making some real change and signing some big contracts. So it's been, to be honest, a rapid ride. And I feel like I'm hanging on to the coattails of Rovco, but it's had its challenges as well along the way. But there's a quick overview for you.
No, that's really, really useful. Thank you. So obviously you are sort of you're a technology company, and a lot of the work you do is very innovative. But it sounds like you've kind of got a big sort of green ethos at heart, as that's kind of always been there from the very start.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our core company goals is quantifiably green. So we do calculate out the amount of CO2 that we save or even generate, depending on what we do. And we try and make sure those numbers are reduced as much as possible. Some of our investors are the likes of Sustainable Ventures or the Green Angel Syndicate, 2 investment groups whose core goal is fighting the climate change battle. So we've always had green and circular economy and sustainability right from the very start within Rovco.
Okay, great. And obviously it sounds like it's been quite a journey, and you're obviously up to 50 employees, which is obviously sort of a big number now, sort of coming from that initial startup phase. We see a lot of businesses in kind of that startup phase, and you're up for the scale up award, and sort of going through that next stage after startup into scale up is something that a lot of businesses sort of struggle with to really take their business to the next level. What were kind of the main challenges that you sort of faced sort of among that time, really sort of getting into sort of really generating revenues and just taking the business to that next level?
So I'd say the biggest challenge has been people, and it's also been me personally, because when you're a smaller company, when you're a startup, you exist through a force of nature more than anything else. It's kind of like a benevolent dictatorship, whereby the founders there telling everyone what they have to do all the time, and you have to transition out of that, because a business can't scale if I'm the limiting factor. So it's about trying to move our people forward. It's about trying to train up the second group of future leaders. It's about establishing a core exec team. So without moving from a benevolent dictatorship into an executive team with a board and really putting people at the heart of the business, I have no ability to sort of force multiply. I have to be able to teach others and then allow them to make their own mistakes. So it's really, that's been the main challenge that we've had to go through, is going from a small business around about 25 to 30 people. It's probably where it actually hits home that if we didn't solve the management, the people issue within the business, that we weren't going to scale. So once we started getting that right, I won't say we've got it right because there's always improvement, but once we started getting it right, it really unlocked the ability to grow to the next stage.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, I saw an article published online that you'd sort of bolstered your senior management team sort of relatively recently, and presumably that's had sort of a big impact, as you say, just sort of helping to really sort of enhance the skill base that you've got within the company.
So bringing the right people in to help alongside bringing your own people forward is really the critical point that a company has the ability to scale. And the executive team, we started building the executive team about a year ago with our Series A landed. We're still working on the team now. I mean, we only just started our leadership development program. That's actually like this week. So that's bringing forward our next group of senior leaders and putting them through a one-year program on training everything from negotiation to people skills to the art of project management and agile philosophies and all these sorts of things. So yeah, it's people. It's at the very core of scale up. If you can't get that right, you can't scale. So that's what we've been working on.
So it must be quite an exciting time, sort of bringing sort of that fresh talent through, and sort of as you say, sort of the next generation of people to sort of take on the business, really.
At the same time, you've got to get your messaging right. You can't grow without sales. So unless you're backing up your growth with your numbers, you just can't succeed. So actually, our role as an executive team becomes very much one of a balancing act. It's not necessarily a case of like plate spinning. It's more a case of trying to become a great chess player in terms of business, in terms of getting all the right people and the right resources in the right place at the right time to get the right ingredients to sort of scale up and grow. Yeah, that's the tough bit. That's the actual challenge, is all of those moving pieces, keeping them in the right place.
Obviously, as you mentioned there, it's key to sort of be generating revenues and sort of being commercial within the business, but you're obviously up for the innovation award, and it's really important to continue to innovate, but also sort of balance that alongside generating revenue for the business as well. So how is that sort of innovation within your team and the business sort of continuing to work?
So firstly, to cover your first point about sales, we're relatively lucky in that because we have a core set of products and services that nobody else actually has, the sales bit's the easy bit for us. So we're extremely lucky, and I'm to be honest humbled by the efforts that my team have put in place to allow that environment whereby the sales are mostly inbound. But as you said, we wouldn't be anywhere without the R&D side, without innovation. So about I'd say 26 of our 50 people are actually in our R&D team, which means that innovation is at the core of what we do. So if we can't create an innovative environment, we can't build new things, and we won't be able to maintain our lead in terms of where we are in the marketplace at the moment. So yeah, so we have a number of core areas where innovation's ongoing and patents are being written and they're going through and they're coming to market, but that's all around autonomy, around 3D vision, and around machine learning, and about the combination of those technologies together alongside some hardware as well, which puts tech and software right at the very edge of offshore robotics. So we've got underwater vehicles with cameras which have computers on them with which are able to run our software right at the very edge. So yeah, so it's about, we had to set up an innovative environment, and that's about fostering the right soft skills within the team. It's about rewarding people for their efforts. We've even brought in like our puzzle awards and sort of cash bonuses to our staff when they even put in a patent application, whether or not it's actually awarded. It's about having diversity within the teams, and that's cultural as well as sort of racial diversity as well at the same time. And keeping a good, friendly atmosphere and a nice culture within the business. So by fostering all of those things together, you keep people creative. And that includes bringing in flexible working practices, the ability for people to set their own hours, all sorts of stuff. People can work where they want. Well, they had that before COVID.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna touch on that point and say, obviously, it sounds as though you were relatively well set up. Sort of when COVID hit us and the lockdown happened, that transitioning to home working was relatively easy. How was that whole sort of process been, and do you still have the offices open at all?
So we actually locked down 3 weeks earlier than everybody else. in terms of the UK, and a number of other tech businesses did as well. And for us, it was literally a case of making that decision. One day, everyone picked up their laptops and went home. And then our only real challenges about moving to home working was people having to come back into the office to pick up an office chair to make it more comfortable, yeah, or a desk or anything. But tech-wise, we were already there. So we were quite lucky in that regard. The transition was quite easy. With regard to how COVID affected us, what we've seen is home working doesn't suit everyone. So we run a culture amp survey, and we know the stats. So 20% of our staff love working from home. 20% of our staff hate working from home, yeah, and everybody else sits in the middle, pretty much. So and neither here nor there. And so what that meant is that, and generally the demographic has generally been our younger colleagues who've been used to more social interaction, need or don't like working from home quite so much as perhaps our older colleagues that have families and wives and children at home as well. And then there's a group in the middle that need to get away from their kids and they need some peace and quiet. So our office is still open. We've made it optional to attend, i.e. anyone can attend if they want to, and you don't have to if you don't want to. And management are persuaded not to, or asked not to, or not go in too much. Yep. And what this means is that although we typically have about 5 in the office because they want to be there. I mean, all businesses will have people that have their own challenges, whether that's mental health or loneliness or their work environment or whatever that may be. But we had to set up the environment that caters for all of those individual differences that people have. And so we like to think we've done it. I'm sure there's always things we can do better, but
yeah. Yeah, it sounds as though obviously a big part of your culture is sort of collaboration and sort of really sort of harnessing that innovation. I suppose a big part of that is sort of people being able to work alongside each other and sort of bounce ideas together. So it's certainly, and we've seen that as well, it's certainly a difficult balance to strike, but certainly sort of giving people the option to come in. That sounds like it's sort of working really well for you guys.
The challenge that we had was about onboarding new staff. So Rovco pre-COVID had a very, very strong and very obvious culture. To take that strong, obvious culture from a pre-COVID era and translate it to online is actually quite challenging. So we had a number of new hires over the summer where we didn't succeed in onboarding a remote worker in London or like Reading or Swindon or wherever it may have been, because we were still learning as well. So you don't get everything right first time. Knowing that sometimes you fail is equally part of scale up and growth, but the point is you have to learn from these things and do better. So we like to think we're getting better. So it's not been easy. It has had its challenges, but it is working.
No, we've certainly seen the same and gone through the kind of the recruitment and interview process over Teams in where we would normally do it in person. And it's certainly sort of something to get used to and to sort of adapt to going forward. But it's I guess that's going to be sort of, in a way, that's going to be relatively normal for people now as we sort of move forward. And particularly, I think the younger generation is going to be, they're just going to see that as that's the way these things happen now.
We'll see. We've transitioned to almost fully Teams meetings and occasionally final interviews that involve going for a socially distanced walk in a park and a coffee. So it's different, but it's different for everybody. It's different for every company everywhere. Some of the tech that we've brought in, Teams, Slack, these sorts of tools have been incredibly useful for helping collaboration happen. So by adopting these and putting them at the core of the business for both the social side and the working side of work, we hope we're getting it right, and we're always on the lookout for additional things that we could do or different ways of doing things that would improve the culture or the setup of the business.
Yeah, no, that all sounds sort of really exciting times, really, and it sounds like you've gone through obviously a big sort of transition to date, and certainly sort of seems like exciting things are ahead for Rovco. So I suppose sort of things have changed sort of dramatically, sort of, and people have had to adapt to sort of the environment around them. Where you sort of stand now, how do you see sort of the next 12 to 18 months or so for Rovco? And has that kind of been impacted over what's happened in the last year, or have things sort of continued to sort of plough on as you expected them to?
We've got busier. So during the first lockdown, there was kind of like a 3-month hiatus while everyone worked out what was going on and what the new normal was going to be. But we were predicting a £4.5 million year this year. We're looking set to do 6.5. So we've been incredibly busy. It's been really tough just because of the sheer scale of work that's coming through. So what we've seen, because we are a business that's focused around the renewable energy environment, and we're focused around autonomy and better and more efficient data flows in that sector, we were already on a fairly fast scale up growth, and that's actually accelerated now again. So next year we see a similar set of challenges coming through. Is how does the business grow? What processes do we need to put in place, and what people do we need to have to make sure that next year's as successful as this year has been? So I think next year our figures were supposed to be 9 million. We're now predicting 13, I think. Okay. The year after we were predicting 24. I think our forecast for 22 is now up at 28 to 29. So yeah, it's
pretty dramatic.
Its own challenge, and it's hard. This is probably the hardest job that I've ever done in my life. You just got to continually learn and continually bring in the right people around you that can help bring the business forward. So I'm not the best person in my company. All my staff are. It's only really through enabling those that the business can actually grow and succeed.
No, that's great. Really sort of sounds like there's the future's really bright for Rovco, and sort of look forward to sort of seeing it sort of as things unfold, really. So I think we'll sort of call it broadly to an end there. So sort of massively thankful to you, Brian, for joining me today. It's been sort of really great to catch up and get some further insight into Rovco, the sort of amazing work that you're doing. As I said, to sort of continue to watch sort of as the story unfolds, really. Obviously, we have the Tech Southwest Awards next week, and it's a shame they won't be in person for us to sort of catch up there. But I know there are a number of sort of breakout rooms on the night, so maybe we'll sort of bump into each other on the night. But so thank you for joining me, and it's been great.
Cheers, Matt. No doubt we'll catch up next week.
Cheers, Brian.